Baseball is back. I am Joe Shasky. He is Ryan Mouser. We're going to try to give you some San Francisco Giants updates as free agency is just going absolutely crazy. And let's start here at the top. Carlos Rodon. I mean, this is a guy who had a career year in 2021, 13 wins, 5 losses, a 2.37 ERA. By far and away, his best season, most impactful. And the San Francisco Giants bring him in on a 2-year, $44 million deal. There's some opt-outs. We'll get into the weeds here. But a 29-year-old left-hander, 6'3", 245 pounds. Ryan, how you feeling about this move?
I've come to like it a little bit more. I was a little nervous. I didn't like how much it was. I thought 2 years for $44 million was a lot for a guy who was his career year, who's had arm problems, shoulder fatigue last year, kind of shut him down. But it's nice to see Farhan and the Giants aggressive right when free agency opens up. It's kind of like that guy in fantasy sports. Anytime right after the draft, you see all the moves happening. Just boom, first guy, he's already making waiver moves. Farhan, he's aggressive. I like it. It's the biggest free agent chip so far since the lockout has ended.
Absolutely. And if you're just looking at the Giants rotation from last year to this year, I think at the beginning of the year and throughout the meat of the year, Kevin Gausman was their ace. Kevin Gausman had a career year last year. He signs a 5-year deal for Toronto. I'm not willing to give him a 5-year deal, especially considering how he faded toward the end of the year. Giving this guy a 2-year, $44 million deal, while I don't necessarily love the amount of money, the years in the deal, but this is what starting pitching gives you. I mean, the year prior, I think it was close to $20 million after starting like 7 games for Kevin Gausman in a shortened 2020 season. I think this is more an indictment of the market of starting pitching and how difficult it is to bring guys in and how expensive they are. But I never want to lock in someone who's not an elite premium pitcher for more than 2 or 3 years. So on that level, I like the short-term deal.
Definitely. Yeah, no, it's the pay him more up front and you can get off the books. If he struggles like he has in the past with injuries, whatever it is, it's a player option, which I would like it better if it was a team option. It's one of those, if he has a great year, most likely he's not going to be back. It's going to be one of those, he's going to test the market and try and see what he can get. But it benefits the Giants because if he has a great year, that only helps us. And you got to imagine 107 wins is not going to happen. There's going to be some regression, but everyone's going to regress. So at least helping the starters, if we lose Gausman, I do like the left-handed side of it, that he is a lefty. He's never played in Oracle Park. He's never played against the Giants.
So it's crazy, isn't it?
It's pretty wild. And then my biggest concern, my biggest question mark is, all right, what are we doing at catcher? Because the relationship between the pitcher and the catcher is so huge, and not having Buster Posey, who, if this would have been last year and he would have got to kind of work with him, I'd be a little more ready to roll. But I mean, what are you thinking with as far as what are we going to do with that?
Yeah, well, let's real quick before we get into the actual rotation and who the Giants have and some of their other needs. Rodon himself, his first year, his rookie year, 9-6 with a 3.75 ERA. Until last year, 2016, 17, 18, 19, and the shortened 2020 season, this is a guy that's never been under a 4 ERA until last year. So I'm a little worried. I mean, I am. Like, there is some risk here. Now, I love that the San Francisco Giants have identified someone who I think does have a sweet spot of prime right now. I think is figuring it out. They did this with DeSclafani. They're trying to do this with Alex Wood, bringing those guys back.
Yeah.
And they did this with, obviously, Kevin Gausman. There's something here, but to think that he's a top-of-the-rotation guy right now, that to me feels a little like fool's gold.
No, it's going to be Logan Webb, number 1. I think you slot in Rodon, or is it Rodon or Rodon?
I've heard it a couple different ways. He said Rodon the other day, so I don't know. We're going to roll with it. Again, he's only thrown 165 innings once, over 120 innings 3 times total in his career. So this is not an innings chewer. This is someone you're going to have to kind of keep a watchful eye on. I think he's got 3, 4, 5 starter, depending on where your rotation is at, written all over him. I guess you're just hoping that he can recapture the magic that he had last year.
Yeah, I mean, build off. Is it one of those situations where a guy finds his stuff and figures out, oh, this is who I am. Like, I can do this. I can be this guy after years of kind of middle of the pack. The similarity I kind of took from it is Robbie Ray last year, reigning Cy Young. It was a guy who, for most of his career, about 4 ERA, kind of average, never having like explosive great start, kind of struggled with injuries. Takes a chance with himself, has a 1-year deal with the Blue Jays last year, goes and wins the Cy Young and gets a big payday. That's what Rodon seems to be wanting to do. And again, that's beneficial to the Giants. If we can get a Cy Young type performance, now we don't want to put those expectations on him this early right away. But you bring him in and you're hoping for the best. And I'd say if people are struggling with his name, just call him C-Rod.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. Now, if you're looking at the rotation right now as a whole, you're going to have Logan Webb, who's just spectacular last year, the Sacramento kid. Yeah, he was absolutely outstanding. I mean, go back and watch game 1 against the Dodgers, game 5 against the Dodgers. I mean, this guy showed up when they needed it the most. He's my number 1 right now, and it's going to be tough going up against other aces. Then the rest of the rotation, and I'm not sure how this is going to shake down. Rodon, who we spoke about, Alex Wood, who has kind of been that 3-hole. I mean, he's kind of like a 3-4 starter for the San Francisco Giants last year. What am I wrong on that?
No, that's about what he was. I feel more comfortable having him in that 4 spot. Maybe DeSclafani as the 3. I think Webb, Rodon, DeSclafani would kind of separate the back-to-back lefties. You know, teams don't really love doing that, but
I think you're right. And the only problem with DeSclafani, they bring him back on a 3-year deal. Didn't love that deal, to be quite frank with you. I thought that they squeezed the lemon on him last year, and he just leaked oil, the final month of the season. And what he did against the LA Dodgers, it's alarming. Now, they're going to change the schedule and how many times you play the Dodgers after this year, but it is alarming. They still need at least 2 more arms, in my estimation, to round out this rotation.
Yeah, well, one of the guys I was looking at this because the Giants did sign Alex Cobb, so they brought him in, so he'll fit right in there.
Right. I forgot about him.
So we got Alex Cobb, and then Tyler Beatty, who had Tommy John. You don't want to obviously force him back and put all that pressure on his arm, but it's someone to keep an eye out for, maybe mid-season, kind of a jolt to the rotation. Whether it's in a starting role or long relief type of situation. And then Sammy Long. We still don't know about Sammy Long, where he actually fits going forward. But they have some options. I do think we need to go get at least 1 more starter, though.
Yeah, we're going to get to what they do with Buster Posey's void, what they should do with Chris Bryant in just a minute. Let's round out the bullpen as a whole, just so everyone understands where we're at right now. Some of the guys who are returning who are just very impactful last year, obviously Camilo Duvall. Can he take the leap from promising young player to legitimate closer? I don't know. I don't know if he's ready to take on that role for the full season. I like him, though. You got Castro, who flashed at the end of last year. I don't know if he's a flash in the pan or if he's someone that could stick around. Now, here are some of the people that I believe to be, stalwarts going off of last year. Jake McGee is in there somewhere. I don't know where, but he's in there somewhere, right? Alvarez, Garcia, Lital, I think they're all in the mix for some of that long relief, 6th inning type stuff. You got Sammy Long, who had a moment last year, but most importantly, you have Tyler Rogers, who had a phenomenal year last year, had moments where he served up the long ball. It was really good when you look at the body of the work. So they have a lot of arms in the bullpen, and I like the diversity of velocities and pitch styles.
Yeah, the only guy, when you were mentioning the bullpen, that kind of worried, Zach Lital. I felt like he was, and I'd rather have Dominic Leone kind of assume his role and kind of be that guy, because he was really good for them. I know they used him as the opener here and there, but when in big moments they threw him in, he did get overused, and I feel like that was a huge issue with our bullpen in general, is that it was overused by the end of the season.
Yeah, I look at the way Farhan has built the team right now, and just over the last couple of years, he's going to get value arms that are random in that bullpen, or pull the lever on some of these AA and AAA guys and bring them up and see where they're at. I don't see them making a splash for a closer. That just hasn't really been there.
No, don't expect a Kenley Jansen to end up with the Giants. And I'd rather have Camilo kind of prep him to be that guy, because like you said, last year he did show his flash. It was the moments. Yeah, in game 5, he did give up the run. The hit, was it Cody Bellinger got the hit that ended up giving the Dodgers the series. But for, what was he, 22? Is that how
22, 23?
Yeah,
22, 23. And for reference, I mean, Mariano Rivera didn't have his first 40-save season until he was 27 years old. John Wetland, same thing. I mean, it takes closers a long time. Very few are Aroldis Chapman hitting the ground running at a 23-year-old age.
No, and you can, and Aroldis Chapman has had his own issues. I mean, we've seen it.
Lots of them.
On and off the field, but we don't need to get into Chapman. But no, absolutely. I do like Camilo, maybe in like a month or two, setting up and being like, all right, this is our guy. Because Jake McGee, he did well. He had I think career high in saves last year, but again, I don't think as a closer you can win with just a fastball.
Yeah, no,
I
I'm with you.
unless it's Camilo Duvall's overpowering fastball, which Jake McDee doesn't have.
No, and he has no movement like him. There's no doubt about it. All right, so let's get into the everyday roster. There's still a ton of guys out there. Outfielders are out there. I'm just looking at who I'm going to lock in on an everyday slot. Now, Brandon Belt comes back on a 1-year deal. He's locking up first base.
Yeah.
I bet you see him DH a little here and there as well.
Definitely.
That's kind of been a problem for the San Francisco Giants the last 4 years is how do you get Brandon Belt in there and also get the Darren Ruffs of the world in there or the Yastrzemskis or whoever's struggling. Lamont Wade Jr.
That's what's huge about the universal DH is that now every team is essentially on the same playing field. It's not the AL always had an advantage when it came to hitters, because if a guy who you mentioned last week on the show, Shohei Ohtani, he was in the running for the Giants, and the number one thing that helped him choose the Angels was, hey, I can play DH and pitch. The Giants and the Dodgers couldn't offer that.
No. And I'm questioning whether we might see a little Joey Bart at first base. Just a little, at some point. Maybe they throw that in there if Belt wants a DH a particular day. So I'm looking at first base, locked up primarily by Brandon Belt. Second base, I think, is kind of up in the air. Tommy La Stella was really good last year. The Achilles injury, don't know where he's at. Solano, it feels like he's done with the Giants right now.
You kind of squeeze the limit on that one.
Yeah, exactly. And so to think that he's going to have a silver slugger type year in a 60-game season like he did in 2020, that feels far-fetched. But you do still have Wilmer Flores. He's a situational platoon type of a guy, not an everyday guy. Shortstop, second base is still a void. Second base is a void for me. Shortstop, you got Brandy Crawford. He signs a 3-year deal last year. I thought it was a shrewd move. I don't think he can replicate the season he had last year, but he's still I think, the leader of the San Francisco Giants right now, taking the mantle from Buster Posey. And then you've got Evan Longoria at third base. I'd like to see them get somebody at third base long-term as the solution. Yeah. But the big question isn't necessarily that infield. I know second base as a whole. It's catcher. Like, to me, the catching void and the leadership void that Buster Posey defensively and mentally brought to this organization and that stabilizing force behind the dish, what a massive hole they have to fill.
No, it makes you wonder, what would Logan Webb have been if it would have been this year, to where he didn't have Buster Posey kind of guiding him along the way. I mean, the growth you can attribute, yes, Logan Webb put in the work and did everything to become that ace guy that we're hoping he truly is moving forward. But without Buster Posey, it's a huge question mark of that was your guy. That was player other opponents would say, that guy, he helps. I mean, you heard it when guys threw to him in All-Star games. They loved Buster Posey, just calls the game right. Knows situations. Hey, if we need to get this pitch, pitchers trusted him to make that call. Absolutely. Does, let's say, a Logan Webb or a Carlos Rodon trust Joey Bart when he puts down the one finger?
It's just really interesting. I mean, you go to a breaking pitch that maybe is one of your secondary pitches in a 3-2 spot, and that's a really good point I hadn't considered. Now, I'd be remiss if I didn't say we're all going to focus on Joey Bart, but Kirk Casale had a streak of scoreless shutout games that was remarkable last year. He just couldn't
led the MLB with it. Most shutouts by a catcher.
But to think that he's going to be able to replicate that again this year, that to me feels like fool's gold as well. I mean, everything went so well last year in a 107
That's my biggest concern.
Series. Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt about it. So your biggest concern is kind of replicating what they did last year. Mine is, I'm just looking at this lineup and I'm saying no 3-hitter, no 4-hitter right now. You don't have Posey, you don't have Chris Bryant. He's still a free agent. And this outfield, it's been so mix and match. And I'm just going to roll through some of the guys in the outfield. Yastrzemski, horrible year last year. Austin Slater, awesome at times. Also, not sure how much I can rely on. Steven Duggar, love the shot in the arm he gave this team. Don't know necessarily he's a starting everyday guy.
And is he going to be healthy? He's always dealt with injury. Anytime he has gotten going, it's the same thing that happened with Mac Williamson. It was anytime he kind of got on a roll, some kind of setback happened. Duggar had the dislocated shoulder towards the end of 2 years ago, and he had, I think it was the hamstring last year what he was dealing with. Yeah. I like him in defense. His bat, it's abysmal.
Yeah, I know it's bad right now, but he's got speed, and in a spacious NL West where all the ballparks play very big, you do need defense. So I look at right field, and right field is the biggest question mark for me because Mike Yastrzemski, in my estimation, has turned back into a pumpkin. I don't think he's adjusted to the league adjusting to him. He struggled last year and specifically was ice cold. Then you got Darren Ruff, Austin Slater, who can also play some right field, but Lamont Wade Jr., like Darren Ruff, to me, was awesome last year. I just don't know all of these outfielders are going to be able to replicate the secret sauce that they had last year. I got to get an outfielder in free agency.
No, 100%. I mean, I think you're looking at Ruff, Lamont, and Wilmer. Those are your DH. As of right now, if you're penciling in right now, you're going Ruff against the lefties, Lamont Wade against the righties, and Wilmer Flores will mix in. He'll be just kind of Ben Zobrist type. Where do you want him? Just not in the outfield, because Wilmer Flores in the outfield sounds like a disaster waiting to happen.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does.
But there are names out there who, especially again, the DH is so huge for the National League now. I think you're going to see a thought process change to how these teams go about looking for free agents.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. I mean, they still have Jalen Davis and Estrada and some of these random guys that they brought up last year. The question for me is, how close is Helio Ramos? Because I do think that really, I think, impacts how deep you go into free agency this year in terms of the commitment level year-wise, not money-wise. Like, I have no problem. Like, the 2-year, $44 million, it's not a long commitment. I have no issue overpaying for more money on a shorter-term deal. But when you get to the outfield, you got to make the right decision here. If you get saddled with one of these 7-year deals on an outfielder who's 30, 31, it can be crippling to an organization. Think Jason Worth, Jason Bay type contracts that never worked out. Jason Hayward, all these Jasons. But, you know,
we don't have one of those, right? Let's just make sure we don't have a Jason in the outfield. Okay.
No, not at all. But like Chris Bryant, I thought was logical to bring back. The more and more this kind of weekend has kind of played out, I don't think they're bringing him back.
No. I think he ends up in Seattle. That's been the one that kind of just fits. Especially Corey Seager is gone now. Kyle Seager, excuse me. I mean, Corey Seager is gone also. Yeah. But Kyle Seager retires from the Mariners. So there's a void at third base. He can play DH. He can play the outfield for them. I would like to see Chris Bryant come back, but again, I don't want like a 5-year deal for him. If you could do a 3-year, that's fine. But again, there's another guy also that we talk about. Heliot Ramos, I think, would be perfect to kind of plug in there. And all right, he's going to be in the outfield. That's one guy who we know is a cornerstone that's going to be roaming the outfield for a while. You mentioned third base earlier.
Yes.
Yeah, Evan Longoria is there right now. How quickly do we see Marco Luciano, and do you put him at third base?
I think it's all up in the air, depending on what's going to happen with this shift rule in the Major League Baseball. My way of building a team, if the shift is going to exist, which I'm okay with, I'll listen to both sides of the argument. I'm not passionate one way or the other about it. I can go in both directions. Hit the ball the other way, take a little off your swing.
Learn how to hit.
Yeah, or like, okay, we ban the shift to put the ball more in play. Like, I'm open to it. I'm not one of these baseball haters. Like, I'm open to seeing it. But if I was building a team, you could never have enough center fielders and shortstops. And I don't care where they end up playing. No. You know, no one talks about this. The greatest shortstop in Yankee history is not Derek Jeter. It's Alex Rodriguez playing third base, right? He was the better defensive player, but because the captain is the captain, he was going to stay there. I have no problem with starting Luciano off at third base as the Crawford thing kind of plays itself out. And maybe Crawford's a guy that moves over eventually to third base or second base at some point in his career. But with all the shifting, with all the shifting, when you have Evan Longoria moving around in the outfield, I don't love that. So I absolutely need to find a third baseman of the future.
Yeah, and I'd say, I mean, look at what did the Orioles do when they brought up Manny Machado? It was, he started at third base. And I mean, now that he went to the Padres and they have Fernando Tatis, he's done the same thing. But that's a shortstop who, bigger dude that, hey, he plays third base, and he's pretty damn good out there.
Well, what about when the Dodgers acquired Trey Turner and they had Seager and Turner at
second base and shortstop?
You know, like, I could see some vision of Luciano playing a little second base. Like, to me, if he comes up this year, just play him everywhere. I want to see him all over the diamond. Like, I have no issues with him playing all over the field. The question is this Jalen Davis's last training camp? Who's the guy who made a bunch of plays, who's from Sacramento area, who played shortstop and then got
Mauricio, yeah.
Is this his last opportunity with this club? Like, there's a lot of guys like Estrada. I feel like this is their final training camp for this team, spring training, if you will. And if they don't make the team outright, I feel like they get traded away for maybe an arm or a younger prospect.
Yeah, one of those, kind of what Dubon was when we got him, was that type of guy who I hope, I do like Dubon ability to kind of play everywhere. It's you can plug him. We talk about in basketball positionless. Baseball is positionless for the most part. If you have a good team, you can be positionless. That's what Farhan is looking to do.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't want these guys where it's like, oh, we're locked down at third base. It's our everyday guy. Or I think shortstop and first base are truly the only everyday positions that we have locked up right now.
My number one biggest question over this next week, 2 weeks, 3-week period, is there any massive trades on deck for the Giants? They've been stockpiling draft picks for a long time. They got Hunter Bishop and a lot of random guys that we've heard about, Sean Jelly and stuff. They've got some highly coveted prospects. Are they willing to kind of speed up the process to go get a disgruntled superstar somewhere else? You and I referenced already the Shohei Ohtani thing. Rumor is he kind of wants out of LA with the Angels. There's nothing significant to those reports. It's all speculation right now.
Yeah.
What would a package even look like to get someone like him? Would you be willing to sacrifice all the growth that you've made at the minor league level to bring in someone of his level? And how does that really help you win? It's great for entertainment, but giving up all that, does it really help you win in October?
Yeah, see, for baseball, I'm always worried about the big name guy, just bringing that one big name, because look at who was the World Series winner last year? The Atlanta Braves.
And they made a bunch of shrewd moves at the deadline.
But what did their best player wasn't even a part of that roster in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So it makes you wonder, okay, if Acuna Jr., they'd go, oh, they would even win again. Would they? It's that there's that chemistry. There's that, there's people get hot at the right time. I like those moves, like the Cody Ross. That was one of the most important players in Giants history is Cody Ross. You wouldn't say he was ever the best player on any team he played for, probably except for like high school and Little League.
Yeah. You know what's interesting? You bring up the Atlanta Braves. I just look at that team and you go around the diamond. Freddie Freeman's been there for a time, and he's a free agent. I don't think the Giants are going to be looking at him.
No.
But Albies, Darby Swanson, and then you got the third baseman, Riley. I mean, those are all homegrown players. You referenced, obviously, Acuna, who is another homegrown player. They did a great job blending in their homegrown guys with these random acquisitions, and they all hit at the same time.
Well, and there's another guy, speaking of Atlanta, Eddie Rosario. It was a free agent guy I'm kind of keeping my eye on for the Giants. One of those, okay, he could come in, he could play left field, he could play right field.
Good call on
that. He could be a DH type of guy. He contributed tremendously to Atlanta's run. I mean, that was one of those moves that people looked at when at the trade deadline, Atlanta was doing some moves, and people went, this makes no sense. They're out of it. They're clearly not tanking, but throwing away the season, going, all right, we've given up. And then guys get hot, guys feel right where they are. I mean, Jorge Soler is another free agent for the Braves.
Good call.
The Braves are losing a lot of pieces that I could see the Giants maybe crawling in and picking up some of those.
Well, and the guy that I'm curious about, and we've speculated, what's it take to get a Matt Chapman out of Oakland who wants a big deal? You know, have we seen the best of Matt Chapman? You know, his numbers have oscillated.
Last year was a tough year for him.
Yeah, you know, like who is he currently? I think he just needs out of that team. I think he wants to get paid and relax a little and calm down. And I think there's some, there's some things that he needs to iron out in terms of his contract that I think will help affect his on-field play. When you're waiting to get paid and you're playing for an organization you know that's not going to pay you, I can see how you would press in a sport like baseball that's such a grind and so emotional. So we got a lot coming up. I want to do this often. All right, turn into Ryan Mouser, Joe Shasky, talking San Francisco Giants, talking Major League Baseball. Let's do another episode later this week. I definitely want to get into some of the rule changes and some of the proposal ideas, whether it's the bases, the schedule itself, I'm talking about banning the shift, the universal DH. I think there's a lot of inside baseball stuff.
Format.
I love the new baseball playoff format. I love baseball. I hope you do too. Please comment underneath. What do the Giants need to do in free agency? Tell us who you want to see them go after right now. Is there a guy on the team right now or someone in the minors you're willing to part with? Who are you looking to poach from another team? Do you stand pat? How can they replicate what they did last year? We have so many questions heading into this year. Are they the 3 seed right now coming out of the NL West?
I just saw the power rankings that MLB.com just put out. They have the Giants at 9. Padres were at 10. So Giants would be the second in the West. Obviously, the Dodgers number 1 in every power ranking to start the year because that's what they do.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at what the Dodgers have done, you want to talk about blending veterans with the young pipeline that constantly churns people out. Gavin Lux last year, Will Smith having a monster year.
Every year,
I mean, they just have dudes. I mean, they gave up Verdugo, who was really good for the Boston Red Sox. Oh, and then acquired Mookie Betts, one of the all-time talents, who just absolutely murdered the Giants in that series. I mean, we're coming off of a 5-game series, first time ever playoffs, Giants-Dodgers.
Feels like
it's a great time to be a Giants fan. I mean, it really is a whole new era, but I'm really excited. I have no idea what this year is going to hold, Ryan.
No, it seems like usually you look at a couple teams and you go, okay, I know who the big guns are. We got that. We'll put the Dodgers, of course, they're there. But from the rest of it, I mean, did anyone expect the Red Sox to be where they were last year?
No,
They
I
weren't
didn't.
supposed to be doing that.
No.
The Astros, they lose Correa. That's a huge part of their team.
You bring up Correa. I would love
wanted
to
him.
see Correa at third base. Wouldn't
Put
you?
him at third base. Oh,
I would love
I know
to see
he has
him at
stated
third
he
base.
wants to be a shortstop.
I know.
It's one of those. I'm a shortstop. But if you had that on the left side of Correa and Crawford, I wanted them even when Crawford, is he going to come back? I thought if we're going to replace him with a shortstop, Correa was my guy. Wasn't big on the Corey Seager. No offense to him.
I think Corey Seager's overrated.
Yeah, that was a big deal. I wanted Marcus Semien at second base was what I was really hoping for. Kind of pair him and Crawford, but the Rangers, look at that. They're making moves. I
know.
Again, teams are willing to spend money now, and I'm hopeful that the owners aren't holding a grudge against the CBA issues that went on and go, yeah, we're going to be slow playing free agency, but you can't. The season starts in 4 weeks.
No, you're right. And it does feel like there is a clear distinction between the haves and the have-nots in baseball. And right now, I feel like if you're on the outside looking in financially, you're in trouble. Like, you're just in trouble. You cannot just do what the Rays have done for years and just have that pipeline. You've got to sprinkle in the vets. You just do. I mean, we know in the playoffs, that's what I'm saying. Like, the vets matter in the playoffs. We know this. I mean, as great as Duvall was for the final 2 months of the season, at the end, it was Kenley Jensen, Urias starting the game, then going to Jensen, then going to Max Scherzer. Boom, boom, boom. I mean, you're talking about 3 impact players, right? And the Giants just didn't have that repertoire in their back pocket. So I love this conversation, Mouser. Anything else before we get on out of here? Turning to Joe Shasky, Ryan Mouser's talking Giants, talking Major League Baseball.
I'm just excited to see what moves happen. I was looking at and going back, and because I kind of forgot that moves happened before the lockout. Max Scherzer signed with the Mets, and that was one of those I came across that, and I was like, thank God the Dodgers.
I know. The Mets have spent a lot of money.
They're going for it now. Yeah, Javier Baez is a Tiger. They lost, and so it's everything's. I don't think that's a huge. The Tigers are up and coming team, but they're still
the kid from Petaluma, the number 1 overall pick from a couple of years ago, is going to be coming through that pipeline pretty soon. So, lot to talk about. Yeah, Turkleson. There you go. A lot to talk about. Giants played Arizona State with Hunter Bishop. Was that where
I think they played together? I'm pretty sure.
They're both in the top 10. So, hey, look, exciting times for the Giants. I'm watching Gabe Kapler throwing footballs to Brandy Crawford. Baseball's back, baby.
We're here.
Let's go.
We got spring
Baseball's
training.
back. Let's go. Thank you for joining us. Again, leave your comments below. What do you think the Giants should do to round out this rotation? Who do you want to see in the outfield? What do you do with Yastrzemski? Like, what do you do there? And then what do you do with some of these prospects? Do we just hang tight? We've waited 5 years? Or are you ready 25. To see this team? Right? Or are you ready to see this team get aggressive? Ryan Mouser, thanks for joining us. Turn into Joe Shasky, Ryan Mouser, Giants Baseball.